What's up, guys? This is Ray here with Biblical Thinking, and we are back with another reaction video to some things that are happening here in the United States. Now, normally I don't cover this type of stuff. I do share articles in regards to this, but in a video we haven't really covered it so much because it is a divisive topic and there really needs to be more dialogue in regards to this topic. But I want to just do a reaction to two videos that I find are pretty out there, and even when people see them, they're probably like, no, that's not real, but yet the video tells the tale on exactly what's transpiring. Now, this reaction to the first video that I'm going to cover is in regards, well, shall I say, both videos are in regards to the LGBT plus community. Now, what they're doing. Now, this is obviously from a Christian perspective, right? Whatever they do, that's up to them, right? That doesn't bother me. But when I see that they are pushing themselves inside families, schools, churches, whatever the case may be, where it's a forceful event to where they want people to actually follow what they say, right? Rather than letting people choose as they claim, right? Yeah, then I have a problem. And what we're seeing now, it's not so much of a movement of choice, it's a movement of force. And unfortunately, what we're seeing in our society, especially in our country, in the United States, is that that movement of force is upon our kids. Now, they claim that that is not true. They claim that they are not groomers, right? That they're not teaching our kids a lot of this stuff. I had posted some videos on my personal Facebook page about some schools who were showing some LGBTQ plus videos in math classes and other places, and they claim that they're not grooming kids, but they're just sharing. Well, what's the point of sharing that type of lifestyle in a math class? What does that have to do with math? It has nothing. It's just an agenda, right? Now, normally what many people say is when anybody's going to do something, whether it be government, the devil, whatever, they usually put it out there, right, in people's faces. But it's so blunt that many people it just goes over their head. They just don't see it. And this is one of those cases. And this video, it's a short little video of a clip that happened this past Friday, June 23rd in New York. It was a pride parade. And while many were hurt at what was being chanted by these protesters on this march, many people just took it as there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm going to let you hear exactly what was said. Now, I have to warn you that this video, while it's short, there is a portion that's on this video to where there's a young lady who's topless. She does have her middle portion covered, shall I say, I'll put it that way. So it's not fully revealed, but it's revealed. And I find it pretty interesting because why is it that at these type of rallies for the gay community, or if you want to call it as now the LGBTQ plus community, when they have these type of parades, why is it always sexual? Why is there always people getting naked or shown in bondage or stuff like? Why is that? Yet when you see other parades of regular people who are not that way, you don't see nothing sexual. But yet always in these types of parades there's something sexual. Could it be because the majority of these people have an issue mentally that's in regards to sexual nature? You know, we do know that some of these people are pedophiles. Not all, but we know that they have a mental condition in regards to sex, right? So it's I find that kind of interesting, and I bring that up only because here in this video you see that. I've seen some of the gay pride parades just passing by in my area, my state where I'm at. I think they have them once or twice a year in different spots. I did get caught in traffic, and I had to stop and see one of them, and it was just interesting to me to see half naked men and naked women just fondling themselves on a float while passing these hundreds and hundreds of people on the city streets. And that was accepted. And that was just amazed me at the time. And this was years ago. And yet we find it's happening here today. So the reason why I say all this is because what you're about to hear, they've been claiming that they are not doing this, but yet they put it out there bluntly, and many people are just like, no, it's not true, it's not true, but here they are saying it. Now I know there are crazy people in every group, right? There's crazy people in my church, crazy people in the workplace. There's crazy people in all various groups, and these could be the crazy people, right? Similar to the crazy people we saw at the White House celebrating Pride Month, and some trans people getting naked, right? I'm sure you've all heard about that in the White House. Actually didn't want to say nothing bad, and then they're forced to condemn it, right? But listen to these people, because the going theory, or the going problem with many people who are against the LGBT community. Now, they're not against them personally. What they're against is the propagation of their teaching towards young children. That's what they're against, right? Because they're not what they say it's a choice of lifestyle. They're actually forcing kids at a young age to believe something that the adults believe, not that the children have made a choice, right? And they're doing so in many different ways. So the very idea that they're coming for our children and trying to teach them these bad things in school, they say is a falsity, that it's not true. Yet, listen to this video. Now, I'm going to play it right here. Once again, this is from this past Friday, June 23rd in New York. It's at a pride parade, and hopefully you can hear what they say. If not, I'm going to repeat what they're saying. They're saying, we're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children. I'm going to block this girl out here. Let me repeat this. So we're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children. We're here, we're queer, and we're coming for your shopping, or we're gonna stop shopping. That's what they're saying. So that I find crazy, that they're actually saying that they're coming for their children. Now, if you don't find that amazing, I don't know what's wrong with you. For them to actually protest and say that, and many people could say, oh, well, they were just joking and blah, blah, blah. They don't really mean that. I'm sorry. Have you not heard any protests, whether it's back in the 70s, whether it's during the George Floyd problems, any protests? What they chant for a specific purpose, because that specific purpose of whatever they chant is their message. And this group of people decided, our message is, we're here, we're queer, and we're coming for your children. That is their message. How can anyone say, well, we're not trying to groom children, we're not trying to change them, we're trying to give them a choice? No. They are saying we're coming for your children, which means that in all avenues whatsoever that they can, they are going to try and teach kids about their type of lifestyle that they've chosen as adults. They're going to try and force kids to actually believe what they say. And they say that that's actually a choice amongst the kids, when it's really not a choice. It's something that the kids are being forced into believing is true. And we know that many people will say, oh, well, my 3-year-old can make up its own mind and what gender it is. Well, how does a 3-year-old actually know what gender it is, or can make those types of decisions, right? No, it's all on the parents. It's all on those people who are raising the kids. It's also on those who are teaching the kids where these kids get those types of ideas. So it's not anything that the kids come up with, it's what the parents and teachers of these kids and maybe programs that they watch on TV, music that they listen to. This is where they're learning all that stuff. And the agenda of this group, this LGBTQ community, not all of them, because there are some that are part of the community that are actually against this and against what they're seeing these people do. There are some, right? But the majority here that are part of this group, part of this party, part of this agenda, are doing everything possible to attack our kids. And they're telling us here that is their purpose. Now, another video I want to share with you here, I have to turn around here and bring it up. So let's see here. Let me exit out of here.
As we celebrate Pride and the progress we've made over these past years, there's still...
Okay, so let me back this up. Okay, so I find this interesting in regards to this video because the video I just shared with you was just from a couple days ago, right? That was their message. But this video that I'm going to share with you now is back from 2021. So 2 years ago, on July 1st, almost 2 years ago exactly, this video came out, and this video is by the San Francisco Gay Choir. Now, we all know for many years San Francisco has been the gay capital of the world, right? We understand that, we know that, but they all of a sudden in 2021 decided, well, we're going to start our message. We're going to let everyone know who we're going after, but we're going to do it in a tricky manner, right? So this San Francisco Gay Choir is doing a song in regards to our kids. Now, they mention, just like the other protesters that I showed you in the video, that they're actually coming for our kids. But their message is not... we're going to turn them queer or LGBTQ plus. Their message is we're going to teach our kids to be tolerant or accepting, right? Now, I believe they have a confused mentality here, but I also believe that this confused mentality is driven by those who are against their movement, right? Especially in Christian circles, because Christians, for some reason, cannot distinguish or separate between the person and the sin, right? We are to love the sinner but hate the sin. I know many people who are in the LGBT plus community, and I love them like friends. I love them like family. I don't treat them any different than what I treat other people. I don't agree with their lifestyle. I never will validate their lifestyle. I'll never agree that their lifestyle's right, or if they choose for me to call them improper pronouns, it's not going to happen. But I show them respect as a person, as a child of God, who I believe is just confused, right? But I don't treat them any less of a person. And I believe this is where the majority are coming at this, because we got to be honest. Majority of Christians are not loving people. They do not follow what the Bible says. They're truly hateful people, and when it comes to people that are different from them, instead of trying to understand them and love them and try and get them or help them to know God, they would rather bash them and put them down and say God hates them, right? Now, the Bible does call this type of lifestyle an abomination, but it's talking about the lifestyle. It's not talking about the person. God all wants us to help save these people, not condone their lifestyle, but help save them from this lifestyle. And how can we do that if we're unloving Christians? It doesn't make sense, right? But I think that's why they backlash a lot, is because of the way Christians act towards them. And I believe they're confused at the same time, because they take non-acceptance of their lifestyle as a non-acceptance of them. They also take it as hatred, when in most cases that's not necessarily the truth. Now, I believe that's where they're coming from with this message on this next video that I'm going to show you, because they're talking about, we're coming from your kids, but we're coming for your kids to teach them tolerance, to teach them acceptance, as if we're not teaching them to transition or be gay or say you're a different gender. We're just teaching you to accept us as us. Now, while they're saying that, that's not necessarily what they're teaching. they're teaching them to not only accept their lifestyle, but accept their lifestyle as something that they may want to have as well into their life, the kids, right? So they're not just accepting tolerance. Now, here's where I agree, and many of you might even disagree with in regards to the LGBT plus community. When we had the whole ordeal in regards to marriages and benefits for marriages amongst gay couples, stuff like that. When I look at it, I'm like, okay, that's a state problem. So if the state or government is accepting of that and makes laws to accept the partner and give them the benefits of the husband or wife, whatever, that passed away, right? I'm all for that. If there's a school that wants to accept a club into their school that's LGBT plus, I'm okay with that. Now, I don't accept that. I don't think it's right, but because it is a government program or government school, those people have every right to be in the school. Those people have every right to have those benefits if they're legally married, even if it's a man or woman. By the state's laws and governmental laws, they should have that right. Just like a person should be able to start a Bible club inside of a school, right? They have that right. And in those cases, I believe that we don't see those things. We just see it as no, and that's just it. It's not going to happen. And while many can make an argument for it because you shouldn't allow this to happen, we need to understand as Christians the separation between church and state. And we don't want the state coming into our church telling us what to do, like what happened with COVID, but yet many of us Christians want to go into the state governments and tell them what we want as Christians, right? We don't see that separation. And while we would all want a government or a united world that follows God's principles, it's just not going to happen. It's never going to happen until all this world is done away with and Christ comes and rebuilds his kingdom, right? After the millennium. That's when it's going to happen. Anything prior to that, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. So Jesus himself said when he was talking to Peter and the disciples, render unto Caesar what's Caesar's, right? That doesn't mean you have to accept that lifestyle. It doesn't mean you have to agree with it. But when it comes to the separation of church and state, if it's state government, they have a right to certain things, right? But we must understand that as Christians, but we don't. And I think that's where these guys get confused, and they're forced to get confused because a lot of Christians don't understand that. A lot of Christians are in politics, and whether or not you're in politics or not, and you're a Christian, that's up to you. But when you take stances, you need to understand certain aspects to those stances you're taking as a Christian or a government official. Now, I know some of you are going to argue with me and say, no, if you're a Christian even in government. I agree with that. But you need to understand the laws of the state and the government compared to the laws of God in the church and how they relate to one another. And that goes into a big topic. This is why I say a lot of these discussions here, they're not allowed to be talked about or debated, right? So it's just one person making a small clip and then hurting another and vice versa and so on and so on. There's never any time to explain how things should work. So with this video here, let me show you what they're saying. Hopefully you can hear this well. I believe you can. But once again, this is the San Francisco Gay Choir, right? They're supported by the city, and listen to what they're saying.
As we celebrate Pride and the progress we've made over these past years, there's still work to be done. So to those of you out there who are still working against equal rights, we have a message for you.
See, notice he says against equal rights.
You fight against our rights. You say we all lead lives you can't respect. But you're just frightened. You think that we'll corrupt your kids if our agenda goes unchecked. Funny, just this once, you're correct.
See?
We'll convert your children. Happens bit by bit, quietly and subtly, and you will barely notice it. You can keep them from disco. Warn about San Francisco. Make them wear pleated pants, we don't care. We'll convert your children. We'll make them tolerant and fair.
See, tolerant and fair.
First, I didn't get why you'd be so scared of us turning your children into accepting, caring people, but I see now why you'd have a problem.
See, caring, accepting people don't have to be in the LGBT community, but they believe that only tolerant, accepting people are in the LGBT community.
When you'll be disgusted when they start finding things online that you kept far from their sight, like information. Guess what? You'll still be alright. We'll convert your children, yes we will. Reaching one and all, there's really no escaping it. 'Cause even grandma likes RuPaul, and the world's getting kinder. Gen Z's gayer than Grinder. Learn to love, learn to vogue, face your fear.
So accepting of this community makes you kinder.
Convert your children. Someone's gotta teach them not to hate. We're coming for them. We're coming for your children. We're coming for them. We're coming for your children. Your children will care about fairness and justice for others. Your children will work to convert all your sisters and brothers. Then soon we're almost certain your kids will start converting you. The gay agenda is coming home. The gay agenda.
The gay agenda is coming home. The gay agenda is here.
Because the world always needs a bit more pride. No, you don't have to worry. Because there's nothing wrong with standing by your side. Because the world always needs a bit more pride. Come on, try a little pride. We'll convert your children. Then we'll turn to you. Giving up the fear inside is freeing like you never knew. Go and see San Francisco. Go and turn up that disco. You'll forget you were ever upset. We'll convert your children and make an ally of you yet. We'll make an ally of you yet.
See, the way they're going to convert the parents is they're going to get to the children, because they know parents are going to love their children no matter what. So if they can get the kids, then they know that they can get the parents, because the parents are going to be loving and accepting, at least most will, of their children's decisions to follow this lifestyle. So if they're accepting and they're loving to their kids who accept this lifestyle, and the parents still love them, they can become tolerant and acceptable of this lifestyle. So how will they convert the world? By converting the children first. This is what they're saying. And they're saying that they want them to be tolerant, loving people. Like if the LGBTQ plus community is the only ones capable of being loving or not intolerant but tolerant people, right? And accepting. If you've seen the news in regards to a lot of stuff that they're saying and they're doing, and if you pay attention to this movement, are they being tolerable? No, they're saying if you don't follow this, we're going to cancel you. If you don't do what we say, you're going to lose your rights and your job. I remember watching a video of some LGBT plus people who were saying that if you're not accepting of their lifestyle, that's a hate crime and you deserve to go to prison for that hate crime. Just for saying that you don't agree with that lifestyle. That is their mentality. So how is that being tolerable? Right? Their message is confusing just as much as their lifestyle. But yet this is the message, this is the agenda that's going out. They're working to change the world through the kids. Now, if this hasn't woken you up, just these two videos here, I don't know what will. This is their agenda. They're going after the kids. And the way they're going to get the adults is through the kids. It's just like in the church. Most of you maybe have dealt with this, especially if you're in leadership. Something bad comes into the church, right? And usually the way it comes into the church bad is not so much by the adults, it's always through the youth ministries. And when the adults see that, hey, this thing is not good, but it's brought in through the youth ministries, in some cases, it's allowed to happen. And what's the argument from some of the adults who are more liberal? What do they say? Well, we shouldn't tell the youth that this is wrong, and because if we do, then they're going to hate us for telling them, what's right, or that we're not accepting, that we're not loving, because we're not allowing them to do something that they're actually really into, even though it's wrong, even though it's against the Bible. They will use that argument just to save face with the youth and not hurt their feelings. Instead of guiding them into the truth and showing them how it's wrong, they don't know how to do that. They just outright either accept it or deny it, and the youth don't know why, or why they denied it, or the youth say, see, they accept this stuff, and then they bring in more garbage into the church, and then the church cannot fight it anymore, because if they fight it, then they're fighting against their youth and their kids. This is exactly the ploy that Satan does with the church. Now he's doing it with the world. I'm not just speaking about the church here. This is happening everywhere around the world. The majority of things you hear that this movement is doing is not really happening in the church yet. Don't get me wrong. There's churches out there that are committing sin by accepting this type of lifestyle in membership, in leadership, accepting LGBTQ plus pastors and elders, and taking stances to accept this type of lifestyle. And they say that they're doing so because the youth are accepting it, and they don't want to push away the youth who are accepting this lifestyle, because the youth are becoming, like they said, more tolerant to this lifestyle, and they don't want to push the youth away. So instead of teaching them what's truth, according to scripture, because they say they're Christians, they just say, well, let's just accept it because we don't want to push away our youth. So it is affecting the churches. But this agenda that they're talking about here is infecting everybody else. It's infecting everybody. The schools, our government, businesses. How many of you have had to do every company has a different policy name by it, but sensitivity training, or there's different names for that type of training, where you have to take training at your work when you get into it, or even how there's always training at work. You have to do some extra classes. I know I had to do it for a previous job, where I had to learn how to talk to people by calling them by their certain pronouns, and how to talk to them in certain ways as to where they don't get offended because they are part of the LGBT plus community. How many of you had taken that type of training before? It's everywhere. And guess what? Companies are being forced to take it. And why? Why? It's just everywhere. This is an agenda. This is a way to attack the home, attack the family, and this is Satan's way of just getting us all ready for complete abomination. And all this isn't surprising. To be honest, this has happened before. If you see the downfall of the Roman society, the homosexuality was rampant in the society. We know that homosexuality was rampant even in the days of Noah and some other places, Sodom and Gomorrah. There have been stages of our world that we know of since creation to where homosexuality was like the last sin that happened, and then the city was destroyed, or a major event happened, similar like Sodom and Gomorrah. And this is no different, because we're told in the Bible, in the book of Romans chapter 1, that prior to Jesus' second coming, that this is all going to happen. And I'm going to read just a couple verses for you. Romans 1, and then we start off in verse 18. It says, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness." So these are men, or we're told that this type of mentality is ungodliness, but there's men who will hold this unrighteousness as truth, right? And verse 19 says, "Because," and it gives us the reason why these men are doing this stuff, "because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has showed it unto them." So they know what's right, but they choose to do wrong. It says, "For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen." So every person has evidence to know that this type of lifestyle, it's wrong, but they still turn away from it. Why? Being understood by things that are made, even his eternal power of the Godhead, so they are without excuse. So they have no excuse to live this way or to teach this way. They know better. They know it's wrong, but they do it for a personal preference. Verse 21, "Because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish hearts was darkened." So why is this stuff happening? It's because mankind, both man and woman, have become vain in their imaginations. And what is this? This lifestyle is an imagination, thinking you can be something else that you're not, thinking you're a man, but yet not thinking you're a man, but you are a man, but thinking that you can become a woman, and vice versa. That is not possible. Regardless if you change your physical appearance, if you take hormones, whatever the case may be, you will still always be biologically what you were born as, right? You're always going to be a man, you're always going to be a woman. So in your imagination, you're pretending to be something else, and you're forcing these kids and other people to imagine that they're something else rather than what they were made to be. And it ends by saying, "And their foolish heart was darkened." Why is their heart being darkened? Because they fully have been given themselves over to their own imagination, right? They're completely confused. They have no sense of reality. And it goes on saying in verse 22 of Romans 1 that professing themselves to be wise, they become fools. They say, as these gentlemen in the choir and ladies, they're on the right side. They're the tolerant ones. They're the ones that are loving. They're the ones that are truthful. Yet in reality, we see by their actions and their message, they're not. So they think that they're wise, but they're really foolish. Why are they foolish? Because they're believing and causing others to believe a lie, an imagination. Verse 23 goes on to say also, "And they," these people who believe this stuff, "change the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like corruptible man." So instead of God taking his place as creator, as king, as Lord heaven, Lord of heaven and the King of kings, is him. Instead of him taking that place, they are now going to bring God down into man's terms, meaning God's ways, what he says, doesn't matter because mankind is more knowledgeable. You know, I heard a pastor one time, and this was the LGBTQ plus pastor, who said that God's the one that made homosexuality because the Bible says that he made man and woman in his image. Therefore, he didn't create a gender because man and woman were both of the same sex. And I'm like, how do you get that from the Bible? But these people are so deluded and so their mind is so corrupted that they just can't see basics of reality. They're living in this reality world of imagination, right? This is what they're living in. But not only does it say this, it says in verse 24, "Wherefore God," because they've pushed God away and say, "We don't need you, God. Our wisdom is better," right? It says, "God also gave them up to uncleanness through their lust of their own hearts, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves." So God allowed them. He stopped talking to them because they put that barrier blockage to where they can no longer hear the voice of God because they wanted to follow their own imaginations. And they changed the truth. Verse 25 says, the truth, they changed the truth of God into a lie. And they worship and serve the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. Now it goes on to say this: for this cause God gave them up into vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. So what is he saying here? That the women did change their natural use, right? So now he's saying that the women will be with women, right? They are now bisexual, right? They're lesbians. And it also says in verse 27, likewise also men, leaving the natural use of a woman, burn in their lusts one towards another, men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of their error, which was meet. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to the reprobate mind to do those things which are not convenient. This is all talking about the state of the world, the state of mankind just prior to Jesus coming back. This was the state of mind prior to Sodom and Gomorrah. This was the state of mind before the flood. This was even the state of mind in other areas that we know of in the Roman society and other cultures, and then they were destroyed or they were conquered. And what's going to happen prior to when Jesus comes back? This world is going to go into a reprobate mind where they are no longer going to accept the truth that man and woman are separate, and that man was made for woman and woman for man, and they were to come together to create life. No, the idea of that is now thrown away with. The ideas of God are thrown away with. And now we are working and influencing, and we are teaching the ways of man, because man is smarter than God, to where women can now be with women, men with men, instead of how they were initially created, men to be with women. And here's their agenda. We're going to go after the kids, because we cannot go after the adults now, because they are firmly in their beliefs, whatever their beliefs are. So we're going to go to the next generation, just like Satan does when he attacks the church or he attacks anything else. He goes to the kids first. Their agenda is, we're going to attack the kids next, and when the adults die off, we're going to have a new generation of people not following God, but following their own imagination on what they believe is right in regards to the natural use of man or woman. And that natural use is going to be gone, because their agenda is man with man, women with women, trans women with men, whatever the case may be, whatever the unnatural state is, that's what they want. And they are led to believe that this is correct lifestyle because they were willing to leave God and they were willing to believe a lie. The videos show it. The agenda out there shows it. No one could argue that fact. You cannot argue the fact from Scripture. As I said earlier, we are to love these people, treat them with respect, and do our best to show them God and help them to see God and follow God. But other than that, we as Christians don't have to accept their lifestyle. We don't have to be forced to accept anything. We just have to follow God. We have to stay strong and follow God. But in that strength, in standing for God, we must remember that behind that sinful act that we believe is this LGBT plus community, behind all that, there is a child of God that needs to be saved. And He has called each and every one of us to go out and help these people come back to get to know their Savior. And I hope out of all these things you heard here in this video, that sticks in your mind. Our job is to help people come to the truth and help them come to Jesus ultimately. And we can only do that by sharing Jesus, not only His truth, but His love as well, to this confused world. Well, friends, I hope you enjoyed this reaction to these two videos. Keep fighting the good fight, keep preaching the truth, and ultimately pray for all these people and pray for everyone that they can all find God. And many of those who are being bombarded by this agenda are not confused as well and don't fall for the lie. Have a good night, have a good day, have a good weekend, have a good week whenever it is that you listen to this. God bless, and we'll see you again in the next video.